What if the true axis of power isn't just who wears the robe, but who holds the crown of time? As the world turns its gaze toward the newly elected Pope, we invite you to look deeper, beyond the figurehead, into the mechanism that rules our collective rhythm. The calendar itself. What if this system of time is the most powerful structure humanity still unconsciously obeys? Welcome to the Golden Turning Point, Calendar, Consciousness, and New Time Seed.
Tune in with the Galactic Spin podcast and expand your view.
In Lakesh, and greetings to one and all out there in the world tuning in with us. Welcome to the Galactic Spin podcast. My name is Makua Ray, Kin 126, and this is episode 32, y'all. It's a genuine honor to be here with you. I am welcomed, as always, by my brother, Ruben Genus, Kin 113. Are you able to hear me, Ruben? Okay, looks like we might be having a little technical difficulty there. So we're going to navigate this organically. He is not hearing anything. Okay. Let me see. Maybe somebody can tell me if we're being heard at all on YouTube, because that's going to be the real test here. Give me 1 second before he logs out on me. We'll try to switch the scene here real quick and smooth. But thank you for staying tuned with us. We'll be right back in Lakesh. All right, how are we doing now? Can you hear me, Ruben? I don't hear you, so I think you might be on mute on your end. Oh, nope, that's actually my bad. I had your volume all the way clipped.
Okay.
Go ahead, try. Yep, I hear you now. All right.
Perfect.
Navigating these organic opportunities. So we certainly give thanks to everybody tuning in to the Galactic Spin podcast all around the world for this episode 32, truly the golden section of our 52 episode journey. My brother Ruben, how you feeling, man?
Well, I'm super excited about tonight, and so much happened in the last week, in 7 days, that wow, it took us a little bit of an effort to arrive to this podcast with all the information organized and ready to deliver. And it certainly is a very auspicious time that we are living, and we are thankful. And we are thankful for the team also for arriving to this golden intersection of this adventure of 52 episodes. So, giving thanks to you also for holding the space here every 7 days with all the technical gadgets and all the juggling that you have to perform on the other side.
Well, it's what we're here for. We're here for it completely. So
Yes,
whatever it takes, okay? We are
yes.
committed to making sure that we, one way or the other, meet this golden intersection in a fine form. And so we absolutely, as you mentioned, give thanks to our team, the 260 Pod. Big shout out to Alejandra in particular, because today in the traditional count is her actual energy, 5
Yes.
Chichan. So we acknowledge that. We're so grateful for her and so grateful for Ishel and that remarkable opening video. As every 7 days, she really articulates through the visuals as well as the audio, the beautiful resonance of her voice, the framing of what we want to present to folks out here. So shout out to those tuning in from across the pond over there in the UK. It looks like 3 a.m. Right on. Thank you for hanging in there with us. We appreciate love your presence. And certainly we're grateful to those wherever they may be tuning in from for this auspicious moment. I mean, I think you said it best. There's so much has transpired since our last episode 31. I mean, I thought that was a really high energy all its own with our beloved Tata José Ajpu Muñoz. Wonderful guest, wonderful conversation. I'm still vibrating on that frequency since we last exchanged with him. And just to really witness some of these amazing synchronicities, which we get the chance to share with people tonight. We also were compelled to write about it this past 7 days on our Facebook page and our Instagram, just to make conscious these
Yeah.
synchronizations happening in real time, like literally up to the moment. So it's quite a remarkable experience.
Yes, and especially on a day like tonight, that is a full moon. A lot of people around the world, as we will see in the coming section, are celebrating the Wisach festivities, the full moon of the Buddha. So I think this is a really auspicious portal for us to have this golden intersection.
Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and get right on into it. Thank you all for
Yes.
tuning in. And as you mentioned, tonight is auspiciously the Wisach moon, the flower moon, full moon, the enlightenment moon of the Buddha. And so it is not lost on us the significance of this moment. And just as natural timing just really seems to carry this forward, it's profound to recognize that our 32nd episode, the golden intersection of this offering, is literally aligned with the Wisach full moon. That's just, and we didn't plan any of this, you see. So it's
No.
all really being timed and coordinated by something certainly greater than ourselves. And we give great thanks for that.
Yes, and especially because, since with our last episode, there is a drums of war in India, between India and Pakistan. So today, all the people who are celebrating in that region of the world, we really trust that all those prayers and all those candles that are being light will contribute to bring those tensions down and to really dissolve, like in tune with this moon of liberation. Because as we can see on the next slide, this Wisach is a very synchronistic portal within the synchronometer, the 13-month synchronometer, as it is synchronizing with the 11th day of this 11th month of liberation on the 13-month year and on King 49. So the Wisach is the day of the full moon in the month of May. Is the most sacred day to millions of Buddhists around the world. It was the day of the Wisach 2.5 millennia ago, in the year 623 BC, that the Buddha was born. It was also on the day of Wisach that the Buddha attained enlightenment, and it was on the day of Wisach that the Buddha, in his 80th year, passed away. So those are the three hallmarks of the life of any prophet or any avatar. And we are today connecting with that energy on no other than King 49, which happens to be the as we can see on the next slide, the according to the Tibetan Book of the Dead, is the time that the Buddha spent in the bardo, 49 days. So in Tibetan Buddhism, the 49 days after death are considered a significant period called the bardo, a transitional state between life and rebirth. This 49-day period is divided into 3 bardos, with the soul potentially reborn during this time. The Bardo Thodol, or Tibetan Book of the Dead, guides the deceased through this journey. So certainly we have been feeling those endings and beginnings. We mentioned during our last episode that the conclave was going to take place at that juncture within the ancient Maya long count, the Tzolk'in. We will crossing on last King 44. Exactly 5 days ago, we were crossing that threshold between the ending of one cycle of 260 days and the start of a new cycle, and certainly the event that was the hallmark of that passage was the election of the new pope. And so we decided to take this entire episode to really go deep into that as an extension of our last conversation with Tata Jose, and really acknowledge all the synchronicities that are happening and that they keep popping. Today, as we were preparing these broadcasts, more synchronicities were coming to the surface. So there's definitely something really big happening, and we give thanks for that. We will light a candle tonight to give thanks for all the synchronicities and all the magic that is transpiring. Despite all the noise and the news that we see on mainstream media, there is something really beautiful transpiring in the background.
I wanted to mention something quickly as well. 49, if we remember, back in January, we initiated a 49-day ceremony. We recognized that the planet parade, basically that alignment that took place basically at its peak was January 25th. But we know the beginning of it was more like the 11th or 12th. I might get the date incorrect. But in any case, it was a 49-day window completing at the end of February. And
Yes.
So, again, the reverberation with the 49, the revolution, which we'll actually look into here in a moment. But also I wanted to mention, you said that the Buddha lived a total of how many years? 80 years?
Years.
Mm-hmm. And so as we reflect on who else lived a total of 80 years, that also is not lost on us. And there is quite a bit of that stream, the consciousness stream of the avatar known as Pakal Votan.
Mm-hmm.
And for people who do engage in the Telektanon prophecy or engage in any of the various expressions of the cosmology, they might be familiar as well then with the synchrogalactic yoga, which actually invokes the role of the Buddha.
Yes.
So every 7 days, there is a synchrogalactic practice in consciousness to consciously connect in the flows and the frequencies of the transmission that really anchors us in right relationship with the earth and renders us in service to the earth, to the whole earth. Similar as to how the Buddha serves the purpose of, through presence, consuming dualistic thoughts as food, accomplishing those roles in the actions of the Buddha. That's a sentiment or a quality of that particular meditation. I invite people to look into that for themselves if you're resonant with that or curious to learn more.
Yeah, and let's remember that this is according to the teachings of Padmasambhava, the all the connections that Dr. José Argüelles Balumbutan was able to make between the Buddhist traditions, having him being into that school of a spiritual school for years in Colorado. And I think it was in, not sure if it was Boulder, that he was part of that community. Of Master Trungpa Rinpoche, who made the transmission to him of all that knowledge and all that wisdom from the Buddhist tradition. So today, being the 11th day of the 11th moon, being Jose's also kin 11, tone 11, and being the kin 49 on the galactic count, which is 7 times 7. So those are two beautiful numbers surrounding this portal, enshrining it. And we certainly acknowledge the vibration of those numbers. As he actually opened a document called the Campaign for the New Time with this quote from Hexagram 49. We were studying that document for this broadcast, and is the hexagram of 49 revolution. It's also part of the tradition from the East, the I Ching, or Book of Changes, which says here in the cover, a guide to life's turning points. So today, certainly, we have been living through a turning point. And the quote that he opened, that he used to open the document, which, because the chapter in the I Ching is called the Revolution of Time, it says, "Thus the superior person or the superior man sets the calendar in order and makes the season clear." And that's what we are going to cover tonight, as we have been doing for the last 32 episodes, 31, 32 with this one.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly it's a moment that it is unique for us to have this conversation tonight because of the many layers of synchronicity.
Yeah.
Connecting with this revolution in time that we are now experiencing.
And I mean, among that is the fact that this episode tonight is titled The Golden Turning Point. Now, we didn't know that when you put these slides together and the title of that book either. So, The Guide Through the Turning Points of Life. I mean, literally, universal consciousness is ensuring that we are on point and on track with this intention. So, so all we can do is really just express our gratitude to all of you, because we're all in this together. We're all a part of this collective ceremonial experience. It's an initiation, really, and an elevation, all the same. So welcome to the revolution.
Yeah, and let's remember that it was only a couple of weeks ago that we were going through Easter. That Easter also starts a period of 49 days called Pentecost, which is really 50. Pentecost comes from 5 and is 7 cycles of 7 days or 7 weeks for the resurrection, the full resurrection of the Christ, the connection with the Holy Spirit, and we are in that window right now to that moment. So this is very, very prophetic and auspicious, and we give thanks for everything that has been really unfolding with such amazing synchronistic beauty that that we are able to make it conscious on this episode. And of course, this is, as we were mentioning, the big news, considering that the calendar that we use is an instrument created by the Catholic Church and implemented by Pope Gregory XIII in the year 1582. And the fact that this Pope was elected right at the start of 260-day sacred calendar, which, by the way, this day one Imish or Imosh is day one of the 260-day count, is actually synchronizing with the harmonic convergence of 1987 that took place on that date, August 16, 1987. For those who want to do their homework and check, that day was also one Imish or Hun Imish is the right way to say it in Mayan language, or Hun Imosh. And this is certainly a connection that we don't want to miss, because of everything that we are going to cover tonight connects with that original seed that was planted with the harmonic convergence in 1987. On that particular day, one or Hun Imish, one dragon is the equivalent on the Galactic Maya count, and that was 54 Solkins from that day, actual Solkins, to 54 cycles of 260 days and nights. Because remember that there is, as we mentioned on our last episode, every leap year, the Galactic Maya stops on leap day, February 29th, and that day is reconciled as an extra day out of time, and the two counts are getting closer every 4 years or every leap year.
So maybe point out then that 54 units were the difference back in 1987, and
Exactly.
now we can see the progression because we're 44 units difference. So for the current 4-year window that we're in, and up until the next leap day in the Gregorian calendar, correct? So we're moving incrementally closer. And as we did touch on last episode, I think we mentioned it, and we've written about it over the past couple of weeks online. But in the year 2208, the two counts actually synchronize.
Yes.
So that's just a thing to note.
And that's why this event that took place on King 45 is 10 days away from King 55, which is the actual signature of the harmonic convergence, King 56 and King 55 and King 56, Electric Eagle and Self-Existing Warrior. So the other interesting fact is that it took place on Gregorian 5/8, May 8th, the 8th day of the 5th moon, which are also part of that progression of the Fibonacci sequence. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of the many layers of synchronicity that we are going to cover on the Time is Our section, because there was so much that we need to put it in one conversation. And this is something that really caught our attention from a couple of days ago, that one of the first lectures that he or public appearances that Pope Leo XIV made, he was making or identifying AI as a main challenge for humanity. So there is so much talk right now about the role of AI and the future of humanity. And we certainly make that part of the conversation here always as much as we can. And we will go deep into that in the coming future, because it certainly is interesting that a pope is addressing artificial intelligence as a challenge for humanity. And I think this also is connected to the fact that he took the name Leo XIV, honoring his predecessor Leo XIII, who was an advocate for the workers' rights in the time of the Industrial Revolution. So now there is all this concern about AI taking also jobs and taking the work or the labor of human beings, and what that may bring to humanity, what that can mean for our evolution and for our way of living at the moment.
As we're navigating, I want to give a special shout out to Delia Sky, who just joined the live chat from Florida. And for those of you who are tuning in to the intro video that Ishel produced, and in fact, the past few heptads or past few weeks, each of those videos have included the Arctara tones from Delia Sky at the very close of those videos, just to bring another level of attunement. So, and those tones are drawn from the Synchronotron 441 practice, which is another one of the layers of this broader time science. But the derivative of that are these tones that bring us into harmony, essentially, into resonance with these processes that are underway. And resonance is really the key. So thank you to Delia Sky, Kin 5. And today also happens to be her energy in the traditional Maya count as well, just like our sister Alejandra. So we give thanks for your presence, Delia.
Yes.
Indeed, indeed. So I tell you what, without further ado, let's go ahead and sink in and tune up. How's that?
Yes.
Ashe. And as you mentioned, we are in this, well, the 11th moon of this now blue rhythmic storm year. And what a year of organization and balance it is truly turning out to be. And so as we basically complete this cycle in the next couple of moons, it's going to be powerful to see how it really crescendos. I mean, I think we're seeing part of that tonight with the crescendo of this full moon energy, this Wisach moon energy. And I think that may be an indication of things to come in the very near future as we round out this blue rhythmic storm moon. Go ahead. I'll invite you to speak on that one there, Ruben.
Yes, and as we have been doing for doing every episode, this 11th moon is part of a structure or a spiral structure called a wayspell. For those new to this information, that wayspell is represented as this spiral shape in which each of the squares has 4 weeks of 7 days each, and each one corresponds to one of the 13 tones in the cosmology. So as we mentioned, this is the 11th moon that we are navigating, and this entire moon is coded, as we can see on the next slide, by Kin 102, the white spectral wind, which is actually the galactic signature of another avatar called Yogananda, was born on a spectral wind day. And that spectral wind is part of a structure of 13 units that is commanded by the yellow human. So to make this clear, this is part of an ongoing fractal count that started in the year 1997 with the 20 tablets of the law of time, in which each moon corresponded to one king. So since then, we have just been extending the moon count, in which from that point in which the magnetic moon of that year, which happened to be the year of the yellow overtone seed, King 44, which is this same wayspell, that since that year, we have been counting moons as kin. So every time that we complete 260 moons, we complete 20 years, because every year has 13 moons. So 20 cycles of 13 moons, we have 260 moons. And we completed that hologram of 260 moons in I think it was in the year 2018.
2017, 2018, yeah.
2017, 2018, and since then we started a new count of 260 moons. We happen to be now in moon 102 since that. So this is the second bundle of 260 moons we are counting. And this wave spell of the human, of course, we have all been feeling that decisive passage that we are going through this year, which is how are we going to use our free will and our wisdom to influence the evolutionary process on Earth. That's the main theme, or the main aspect that we need to work on this year. So all the moons in this year are in function to that purpose of free will. And the question that we have been asking this moon is, how can I, or how can we release and let go? That's the point of the moon of liberation, which is beautifully connected with this Wisach, because it's the liberation of the Buddha and the spirit. And the themes is to dissolve and release. So what do we need to dissolve and release as humanity, as a collective human that we are, to really keep evolving and keep advancing towards the completion of the divine plan on Earth. So the energy of this moon is also interesting, the structure of this moon, as we can see on the next slide, because there are two perfect wave spells that are inside this moon. So the first day of the moon started on Kin 39, which is a cosmic tone. It was the last day of the wave spell of the hand. And the first and the last day of this moon is going to be the first day of the wave spell of the world bridger. So on our next episode, we will be on Kin 56. As we can see, we always have this transmission on Kali days, and which is the central column, the blue plasma that we see called Kali. These are also important to mention. These plasmas are also qualities of solar energy, and part of a discipline called solar yoga. And the next episode is going to be the celebration of the harmonic convergence. So that's also like a beautiful opportunity to bring this every episode that we have been doing. We are doing our best to connect with the one before, and so that we keep that continuity and that continuing consciousness alive. So on the next episode, we will go again cover a few things about the harmonic convergence. But I think that what is important is to keep in mind that this spectral moon is holding that balance, like those two pillars. We can see that the start and the end of the moon are the end and the start of wave spells. So that's something that doesn't happen all the time, and something that we want to keep track on, because that's part of the beauty of how the cycles of 13 kind of fall into place within the structure of the 28 days.
Exactly. And also, for those who were conscious with us when we were doing the observation of the blue hand wave spell, you'll remember that we invoked that energy where we made the cosmic world bridger conscious Kin 26 as a bookend, with Kin 40, yellow magnetic sun, on the other side of that wave spell. So it's very beautiful how we see an elegant representation of that, almost stabilized in this moon, in the spectral moon of liberation. So it's elegant,
yes,
to say the least.
And this is the wave spell we are navigating. It's the yellow sun wave spell. We mentioned that we kick-started this wave spell with major solar activity. There's a sunspot that is still flaring, but that has been very gentle with us. And this wave spell goes from Kin 40 to Kin 52, yellow cosmic human. We have the the trans the last day of the Vespel is always the transcendence to the next cycle. So we have in 3 days that energy of the human transcending to the next level, and especially that energy or that frequency of 52 is the golden measure stick of all the cycles of the law of time. We have the 52 weeks in 1 year, we have 52 days in one castle, and as we can see, we are finishing the first cycle of 52 days on King 52, which is the red castle. And we will start on the last day of this month, the white castle. And this is the synthesis of the Vespel that we are navigating. We cover in detail the start of this Vespel last time, that is synchronizing with also the Venus transit and the Dresden Codex. The day 1 Ajaw is the most sacred day of Venus. And today we are on that Kin 49, the Wisach full moon. But at the center, we have again the presence of Pakal Votan. We didn't mention that one on our last episode, but the resonant tone, which is the heart of this Vespel of the sun, it always corresponds to the return date in the future of this avatar, this Mayan sage that left a temple and a sarcophagus fully inscribed. And in one of those inscriptions at the top of the temple that he's buried, there is this date of his return. And on the dream spell count, it happened to be King 46. So 3 days ago, we were exactly 3,859 Solkins away from that return. And we will go deep into what that means in the next section, because this election of the Pope is connected to all of this in a very interesting way. And the last day of this Vespel, we want to also honor the presence of Loidin Bolonic, the feminine avatar also, who left these codes for us to really track time and be able to get our memory back and our genetic code in order, thanks to the work that she did with Vallumbut, next to Vallumbut, during 21 years of going around the world teaching this new knowledge base.
Planetary service, really, 21 years of planetary service, honestly.
Yes. And it's beautiful because she was born on May 15, 1943, and she departed the next day on May 16, in the year 2014. So her again, we have this birth and death and rebirth, and the anniversary of her passing, 11 years, that will take place on May 16, will be the start of the Vespel of Prophecy. So she's synchronizing this year with those two very key numbers of the law of time, which is King 52 and King 53.
Yeah, I think we should pause on that just a second, just to say in context, the fact that this 260-day alignment is happening now, where Kin 52 is synchronizing with her arrival date, right? Yes. And Kin 53 is synchronizing with her departure date prior to the golden intersection of timelines is phenomenal. And in terms of her embodiment, she truly embodies and embodied cosmic human, really, like the expression of a life lived at that cosmic frequency in terms of free will. Just in terms of what she showed the way for all of us who are even tuning into these frequencies now, she is absolutely the way shower for that. So it's important, as you said, to really commemorate her and venerate her role in what has led us to this point.
Yes, especially for women, because it was kind of, she was a pioneer on bringing the 13 moon count and that biological cycle back into consciousness, and work with women to really reconnect their biologies with the cycles of the moon. And precisely, she will be turning 82 years if she were alive, and 82 is the mirror of 28, and it's also the sum of 60 plus 22, which are the two avatars in the higher realms, Pakalvotan and Bolonik, the two numbers, magic numbers that create the telectonon story.
So clearly there's a lot to get into. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in with us this far. I want to give a special shout out to folks. We have folks tuning in from Spain and from what looks like perhaps Canada. They mentioned that they're in the Blue Eagle zone. And then we have, as we mentioned, Delia anchoring in Florida. We have someone who tuned in from the UK. You can begin to see where, as a whole on, folks are beginning to tune in. These are people just in the live chat, what to speak of people who aren't even tapping in yet or will at some point in the future connect with this frequency and this transmission. But thank you all for being here, for being present, for being on the planet at this time, a most auspicious time to choose of your own volition and free will to be here in such an impeccable way. So we received that.
Yes.
Yeah, Canada represent. Big up. Neighbor to the north. We're down here in the Blue Monkey Zone. I'm in Los Angeles. Ruben is in the east coast of Mexico on the Tulum side, Quintana Roo. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
In the anchoring in the homeland of the indigenous Maya, and these
Yes.
sacred timekeepers.
Yes. An honor to be here, to be honest.
Absolutely. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. And we're going to go ahead and just get into our expression. Time is art. So as we mentioned, the title of tonight's episode auspiciously turned out it wanted to be the golden turning point, calendar consciousness and new time seed. Okay. And as we take this journey together, we're going to feel and recognize how the seed prominently figures in to this process that we're all experiencing in various ways.
Yes, and as we mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast, well, the idea is to really take the opportunity of this important shift in the Catholic Church, to really address the path that we have traveled since Pope Gregory XIII changed the calendar in the year 1582, and bring back a little bit of that memory that is really blurry sometimes. Probably when we ask anyone about the history of the Gregorian calendar, they go blank, because this is not really part of what they teach in school, or something that is really part of any curriculum. And as the Dr. Arguelles mentioned, the love time should be part of the basic knowledge base that we teach our children. So it is important to bring back to the memory of what happened, so that we can really comprehend why are we going through the situations that we are experiencing right now. What are these events, this passing and coming of popes represent on the big picture, and according to the lens of the love time. So this is basically a chart that we presented on, I think it was on episode 2 or 3, because when we started this broadcast was for that initial input of the Gregorian calendar reform on October 15. So we decided to bring back some of the key elements regarding the history of calendars. And in this map, which is the map of the 13 Bactun of recorded history, the Mayan long count of 13 periods of 144,000 days each, or we can say also 260 periods of 7,200 days each, being approximately one generation each. Those periods are called Katun, and we are right now in the first Katun after closing the cycle of 260 Katuns in the year 2012. So this timeline goes from the year minus 3113 before Christ to the year 2012, and within it we can appreciate how as José Arguelles defined it, we have 3 layers of calendars in the history of humankind, or history of civilization, because this map of recorded history is really a map of the from the start of the first proofs of scripture and the Sumerian tablets, and the emergence of the first knowledge base, or that's what is called this 13th Bactun cycle of recorded history, what was recorded either in stone or in scrolls. This is the map. So it starts with in the year 3113 BC in summer and ends on December 21st, 2012 in the lower corner. So at the first stage of Gregorian of the calendars, the 12-month base calendars, starts back then in Sumeria, in Mesopotamia, where the Egyptians used to have a 12-month calendar, but it was 12 months of 30 days, but and 5 holidays. And the Romans later took that structure and implemented that in Rome. But in the year 44 BC, they noticed that the start of the year and especially the equinoxes and the solstices were out of sync. So Julius Caesar came with the Julian reform in the year 44 BC. It was called the Year of Confusion. About 445 days was that year, and since that year the confusion has been expanding. So we passed from having like a harmonic standard, which is 12 months of 30 days for a total of 360 days plus 5 days that the Romans used to reconcile as intercalary month. Every 4 years they will have an intercalary month. We now have a leap year or a leap day every 4 years, but back then it was reconciled as those extra 5 days for each year to complete 365 days. That is the tropical year, 0.25. So every year has the sun takes exactly 365.2524 days to complete one orbit around the Earth, and that those extra 5.25 days were placed at the end of a 4-year period to have this intercalary month, which usually was the month of February, because the calendar used to start in March with the equinox, and The month of March was consecrated to the god of war, which was Mars, and that's why the military campaigns of the Romans were starting with the start of the year. And it's also interesting that that's the time of the year of that the sun is in the constellation of Aries, which is the energy of charging the ram, and it was in the year 44 BC when Julius Caesar decided to reform the calendar, and that cost him his life, because the priest class didn't want to lose their ability to manipulate the time. And it was during the Ides of March 15, that he was assassinated, only a few months after he did his reform. And that the calendar lasted for almost 1600 years. And it was called by José Arguelles Babel 2. So Babel 1 is all the 12-month calendars based on the division of 12 months of 30 days. Then we move to the Julian count, which has already institutionalized the irregularity, because it added the leap day, but it was the Gregorian calendar who modified that leap day. The Pope Gregory XIII, the year 1582, noticed that that extra 0.25 days every 4 years over large periods of time would also set the seasons off.
I'd like to let me say this too, though, because it's not exactly 0.25, and the fact that it was just off from 0.25 further added to the confusion and the error in time, because the fact being that there was really no way to reconcile the astronomical nature of time according to a man-made system, because nature just doesn't operate with that type of maybe we would say precision in that regard for the material sort of application. So it's just important to note that little quarter is not even a quarter, and because it's slightly off in terms of reaching the exactness of it, it's impossible.
Yes.
And that's something that Dr. Arguelles does explore in his narrative in the Campaign for the New Time, as one of the sort of numbing realities behind the fact that you can't get this material mode to actually ever precisely connect or be able to deduce it in such a way where it can exactly match the reality of what's happening. So reality can never truly be contained by that man-made calculation or system or manipulation, as it were. In the fact that these efforts were made to adjust these expressions of the empire at their various stages of manifestation to, as you mentioned before, the priest class did have an intention to maintain their control, broadly over the concept, if you will, the concept of time. Because truly, time is not something that can be controlled. It's the synchronizing factor of all material phenomena. It's uncontrollable, actually. All you can do is sink in and tune up to it, really and truly. Just wanted to mention that. And also quickly, for those tuning in on the live chat, I did put a link directly to this graphic, because obviously it's difficult to read on a cell phone, things like that. So for your own self-study, we want to provide these rich graphics to you to make sure that you can actually follow along. There's a lot of detail in them. They're color-coded, obviously. But these are very important, I guess, infographics would be a great way of putting it, to help make conscious what it is and why it's so significant that we're actually having this conversation right now. So feel free to go ahead and download the graphic for free right off the website at the link in the chat, and also in the show notes in the description.
Yeah, and we want to make emphasis here that we brought this infographic because it's also a clear demonstration of how the phi ratio has been definitive in the implementations of these changes. No? So as we can see, the structure of the sulking, which because what we see on the inferior area is basically a structure of a 1320 matrix comprised of 260 cartoons, like I mentioned before. So this is a time compression expression of the 260-day cycle as 260 generations. So since each of these units corresponds to approximately 20 years, we can see how the Gregorian, the Julian reform took place right at the end of the 8th Bactun, which is the golden section of this matrix, and that signals the year 0. That's the year that Christ appears on the planet, and the reform was made in 44 BC. So it's basically approximately 2 cycles of 20 years before the appearance of Christ. Because let's remember, this is the year 2025 registered since that 0 point that started back then when Julius Caesar implemented the Julian calendar, and Christ emerged on the scene 44 years later, approximately, because we don't know if the year 0 is the actual factual birth of Christ, but let's say that is around that window that at this scale is very precise in how it shows that the year 0 is basically synchronized with the end of the 8th Bactun. Each of these columns is 1 Bactun in this scale. So we can see how the next reform, which is Babel 3, and that we can see here in pink, is the Gregorian reform, which is why we are going to go deep into the conversation of what this Pope, why his papacy is so important, is because the year of the reform was the year 1618, which is also, the year of the reform was the year 1582, but it really served as a preamble to the entrance to the Bactun 13 in the year 1618, which is the golden section. So whoever kind of planned for this and to make sure that the Mayan wisdom and knowledge base about time was covered, they either consciously or unconsciously created a layer of distortion right at the entrance of, or right before we entered the 13th Bactun. That's why the number 13 has been almost vanished from everywhere, from airplane seats to skyscraper floors, and it has this bad reputation as bad luck.
For a moment, let's just reflect on that, because who would benefit by a campaign to make people disconnect from the frequency of 13? Well, of course, the very ones who call themselves Pope number 13. Okay,
Yes.
Let's be clear. The only ones being thrown off the trail are the ones that choose to subject themselves to these paradigms.
Mm-hmm.
The Catholic Church has inherited a wizardry of sorts in terms of what they've spellcast out there over the centuries at this point. Because, what we're looking at in this diagram as well, if we really think about it, we're already on the other side of what we see on the screen right now. But if we also look at the compression from the red to the blue to the pink, we can also begin to imagine where this new frequency where we're currently at in the 13 tunes shows up in the next compression cycle. So
Yeah.
going from Babylonian time, right, at the beginning of this compression process into the Julian expression, as we said, of the calendar system, derived from the Babylonian that precedes it, then the Gregorian deriving from the Julian that precedes it, to the point where actually it hit a wall. And that wall occurs, really, if we look at it distinctly, and we could arguably say that wall occurred September 11th, 2001. And there are reasons that could be said. But we also know that it was predicted that the cycle would complete December 21st, 2012, which we do see the completion of that Baktun cycle. We know that that was a recognized event that occurred. Now, in many ways, the narrative got hijacked, similar to the way the number 13 has been hijacked. Yes. So popular consciousness has been continually thrown off the trail, okay, of actually reconnecting with the divine directly. You don't need the intercessor. The whole idea of the domination code was to put a structure between you and the creator. And that's successfully what's occurred for centuries, to the point now where we're completely numb to it. So we actually, in a way, acquiesce to our Father, if you will. The terminology is applied in this psychological menagerie. It's unbelievable. But we have to call it out at this point for what it is. We can't romanticize it anymore. We don't really have the luxury to do that on a planetary level. If we see what's going on in the scene right now, there's a lot in this, what we're going to talk about tonight as well, where we have to keep very clear, balanced perspective on what we're witnessing. Because on one hand, it could become very seductive to get looped back into this artificial time loop. We have to really make this clear.
Yeah.
And let's understand, in the previous campaigns to shift the calendar, they have been thwarted, dramatically thwarted, okay? Like literally, because the last thing that the forebears of the domination code want to see happen is a loss of control. And to admit the fact that they have covered over these codices, that they have claimed publicly that they were all burnt and lost, that can't possibly be true. In fact, they were confiscated and they've been studied, deeply studied. So when we talk about where did they get these codes from, it didn't just come out of nowhere. They literally took this knowledge, have kept it to themselves, have been sitting on it at the Vatican for centuries. Okay, so while we're all suspended in our spellbound animation with what's going on with the pomp and circumstance projected by the media cohorts, we have to understand what is being played on our collective consciousness while it's happening in real time. So I don't want to get lost in the details here either, because there's a lot of factors, but it's very important that people feel the resonance of this moment. And don't be seduced. Please do not be seduced back to sleep.
Yes.
We've worked too fucking hard for that to happen. And I'm not talking about just me or Ruben. I'm talking about the forebears of this effort that go way back before us, that we stand on the shoulders of, all of our many ancestors, all the many ones who died in various ways over the centuries in an effort to perpetuate the truth. Okay, so what we're presenting to you right now is pure, unadulterated truth. And it may not make some of these system subscribers very happy or warm and fuzzy, because what's happening is actually very, I don't even know the word for it, frankly. It's transformative is one way, traumatic for some, to the degree that you're holding on to the system as it were. We're in the moon of liberation, y'all. There's a reason why this is coming through right now. To be in tune with natural time is to actually get in the frequency of the field and embody that. Okay, so I just want to put that forward right now.
Yes, thank you so
We're
much
making
for.
all this conscious, but we also have to be in the resonant field about what the fuck is actually happening right now. Okay,
Yes.
and I have to emphasize that with a little bit of spice, so y'all really appreciate how serious this stuff is.
Yeah, because there is so much blood that has been spilled because of this, and that domination code is has been really implemented with no mercy, since the start of the, especially let's remember that the Gregorian reform, that papal bull, is a sprout of the another papal bull that was the doctrine of discovery. So the basically that Gregorian reform of 1582 comes 90 years after the issue of that doctrine of discovery in the year 1493, I think. We did a special on this a couple of years ago about the need to rescind this calendar, and some of the indigenous peoples in Peru made a comment and a public statement about the need of the current pope to come clear on the restitution and the need to rescind everything that was taken, and everything that these laws that operate in the background still are causing for the indigenous people. So certainly we make emphasis that the golden intersection of timelines is taking place right during those days of that moment when Christopher Columbus arrived on this part of the world, and what that has brought, because the domination code basically, we still see today the Gregorian calendar is just one aspect, but all the values from the West that was implanted here, well, some of them were implanted through violence, and even though the last pope apologized, well, there is still a lot of work to do in order to really bring balance to the equation. So what we see also here is that, interestingly, we see here the face of Pope Gregory XIII, who implemented that reform in order for the monarchies and the church to have control over the indigenous peoples. So they first took, through the doctrine of discovery, they took control of the land and the resources. Then through the church, they implemented a new belief system. And then the last stage of that process was the changing the calendar in order to take control of how people organize themselves. So the calendars that were used, especially by the indigenous peoples of Mesoamerica and also other important cultures like the Inca and the Aymara in the Andes, were 13 moon based calendars, were biological calendars, were calendars or systems based in natural cycles. The Gregorian calendar has no connection to nature. And interestingly enough, was Pope Gregory XIII, the man who implemented this reform. He took the papacy on May 13, 1572, which would be tomorrow. So there is no coincidence that we are covering this today, and that we discovered that as we were preparing, just to see what was his galactic signature and when he took power, just to be able to connect the dots with what is happening now. And we can see that he was born January 7th of the year 1502, at the start of the 16th century. And he was born as a red crystal moon, which happens to be 12 moons or 12 months. Let's remember that the word moon was distorted, and we ended with the word month. So it's interesting that this Pope was born right at the center of the Solkin, because King 129 is right at the heart of the 1320 matrix, and that he was the one who instituted this calendar in the year 1582. His motto, as we can see on the right, this is from Wikipedia, these tables, was opened and closed, similar to what just happened with the current Pope. So in the next slide, we can see how that day that let's see that he took power on the 8th of May. We already said that was King 1. We see below the signature on both counts on the lower left side of this slide, which happens to be one image, and his motto is "In the one, we are one," and he took power on King 1, so or the equivalent of King 1. So since Pope Gregory XIII to Pope Leo XIV, we have a total of 41 popes. 41 being also part of this of the structure of this Wayspill, and we mentioned during our last episode that I think we mentioned it or we posted on social media. 41, according to the law of time, is the interval of God. Is the difference between the matrix of totality, which is the number 20. The 20 seals represent the totality, but the Hunabku, which is the one giver of movement and measure, the one that animates the 20, is the 21. So the matrix of 21 by 21 is 441, and the matrix of totality, which is 20 times 20 is 400. So the difference between 400 and 441 is 41. And that's basically the difference between Pope Gregory XIII and Pope Leo XIV. We have 41 popes since then. And we certainly trust that this Pope would be recorded as the one who really helped to make this conscious, to unveil the truth behind the manipulation of time and the slavery that came from it. Because we are still today, as Dr. José Ajpu well put it, we are slaves to the systems because they govern our time. And this Pope has a major opportunity, especially coming from the United States, having connections with the indigenous cultures in Peru. This is incredible opportunity for him to come clean and do something about what happened. That is more than just asking for forgiveness, like Pope Francis did. There is an opportunity to really shift history in a big way, and this Pope has that opportunity.
I wanted to also mention that Pope Gregory XIII was the 226th Pope, as we saw in the slide you showed previously, and then that difference to the 277th Pope in Leo XIV is 51.
Oh,
So there's 41 between the previous Leo the 13th, and there's 51 between Pope Gregory the 13th
wow.
and this Pope Leo the 14th.
Okay.
Interesting play of numbers here,
Huh?
for sure. So
Yes. And he was born, like we see in the next slide, he was born September 14, 1955 in Chicago, Illinois, the United States. And that happens to be King 104, which this is part of the seven key synchronizations that happen on for the golden intersection of timelines. We mentioned that October 14, 2025, that's the unified cosmic time frequency, adding the time signature of the Galactic Maya and the day keeper of the traditional Maya, in this case being for Ajaw, equivalent of Kin 160, and the Kin 204, the yellow solar seed, we have, when we add the two, we have 364, and we subtract 260, and so we get the Kin 104. So the fact that he embodies that frequency really got our attention when we learn about the news, and the fact that, on as we can see on the original or the indigenous count, he was born on day 3 Ik, which was the equivalent of the last broadcast when we were speaking about this. That's really interesting, especially
so many
considering that.
layers. So many layers. That was Kin 42 when we knew, that was the episode, that was what was coding episode 31. Now we're in episode 32 coded by Kin 49. So 7 factors different. It's also important to mention that José Ajpu Muñoz, our guest, actually is born on September 14th in the year 1966, whereas the new elected pope is born September 14th, 1955, with an 11-year difference between the two. Now, bear this in mind. On the golden intersection of timelines marker, October 14th, 2025, both José Ajpu Muñoz, Daykeeper, shows up as Kin 160 equivalent, or for Ajaw, the main marker of the traditional Maya, synchronizing with the unified cosmic time that happens to be the signature of the now newly elected Pope, Kin 104, like you just explained. That's mind-blowing.
Uncanny. Yeah.
It's uncanny. I mean, again, none of this is made up. We're just observing what is showing up. There's a big difference there. So we're not, creating this, other than we're just observing this. Maybe the observer effect is creating this, because when we did enter the conversation with José Ajpu Muñoz, Kin 219, last episode, with your Kin 113, with my Kin 126, you factor those and you subtract 260, you arrive to 198.
Yeah.
And 198 is guided by none other than Kin 42.
Yes.
So episode 42, rather Daykeeper 42, Kin 42 last episode. This guy has a Daykeeper 42, this guy being the new Pope. It's and my son, Sirius Bodhi, Ishal's son, is Kin 42. So we're just, observing
Yes.
synchronization underway, for sure.
And let's remember that these signatures is like the frequency that we are attuned to. So we are like musical instruments, and we, depending on the day that we arrive, these frequencies were vibrating, and we hold that vibration or that imprint of that day. So the fact that this pope comes with that frequency has many layers, and as we can see on the next slide, this is an excerpt of the main blog about the golden intersection of timelines that we will share on the chat room, and so that people can go there and read what we presented back then, because this is an excerpt. Number 104 holds a key frequency within the advanced Maya time science. 104 is the time interval between the galactic count of 260 days and the lunar count of 13 months, 364 days. When we subtract 260 from 364, we get 104. So that's basically the interval between the two, plus 1 day out of time, of course, to complete the solar orbit. This factor of 104, 52 plus 52, also corresponds to 2 Syrian rounds of 52 years, or 1 Venus round. The number of years it takes for Venus to return as morning star on the same day on the 260-day sacred count. We talked about this on our last episode too, because the one Ajaw, the equivalent of Kin 40, is that day when this happens. Third point is there are also 104 months of 28 days comprised within every 8-year Venus-Earth pentagonal cycle. So we mentioned also like 3-4 episodes ago that every 8 years Venus and the Earth complete a beautiful pentagrammic pattern, or like a flower, that is in resonance with the golden proportion. Every 8 years Venus completes 13 orbits around the Sun, the Earth completes 8 orbits, and they meet 5 in 5 opportunities. They have 5 internal conjunctions. So that's why we see that geometric pattern that reveals the golden proportion. And since in 8 years we have 104 months, because every year has 13 months, so 8 times 13 is 104. So 104 is a factor of those 2 Fibonacci numbers, 8 and 13. The fourth point is, according to the ancient Maya time science, on December 21st, 2012, we closed 4 cycles of 26,000 years each, for a total of 104,000 years. So that's a fractal. We are speaking also about the qualities of fractal time, and basically that frequency operates at that large scale of 104,000 years, which is then we really start to expand our minds to consider those large periods of time, because these are basically what we saw at the beginning of this presentation is one cycle of 5,125 years, and we are speaking here about an entire way bigger cycle, which, let's say, every 26,000 years we have more or less 5 of those cycles of 13 Bactuns. So we have 65 Bactuns, more or less. And according to the Telectonon prophecy, 104,000 years is precisely the frequency of Pakal Votan's Samadhi. And then that's where we start to make this connection with the Buddha also today, because as we can see on the next slide, we are going to see this is a graphic from Cosmic History Chronicles, published by the Law of Time Press, and is an infographic also showing that what is called here the chronocosmic viewing lens of Pakal Votan encompasses the 104,000 year diameter. So all the history of the planets, everything that happened, is it's absorbed by this frequency, and this avatar that that according, this is from the 28 Meditations of the Law of Time, an excerpt, Pakal represents a very, very high level of enlightened being. And the word being is almost too concrete. We are dealing much more with a form of continuing consciousness, which is able to maintain itself through a very special type of samadhi. Because of the knowledge of the fractal orders of time, this samadhi can last as long as 104,000 years. This is the definition of this mind, which we refer to as Pakal time. The mind of 104,000 years, as we mentioned, 104 is the cosmic number of Arcturus. So that really stretches the mind to have someone coming to Earth that holds that capacity of memory. But these avatars were like sent to the Earth to really anchor these frequencies and anchor that memory.
Mm-hmm. I want to mention as well, that's part of the reason why, really, since you and I began collaborating, there's been so much emphasis put onto that particular location of Palenque or La Camha, because it contains the energetic memory of this which we're actually now observing together collectively. It's been a constant as part of that continuing consciousness. And so for our in-person events, which we'll have some more information to share with the audience here in the coming weeks, we plan to be anchored in Palenque, of all places, as one such location in the planetary grid, we could say, of others participating in the synchronized moment of observing the golden intersection of timelines. It's a remarkable thing because by tapping in together in the unified cosmic time frequency of 104, we are directly tapping into Pakal Samadhi of 104,000 years. Yeah. That's the way the fractal time compression works. Mm-hmm. So we're making it conscious, making it sacred, and making it art. Hence, time is art. So I just want to continue to encourage those who are listening and really feeling your way through what it is we're presenting to you. It is truly an invitation to really align with Earth, align with the noospheric field that's emergent of the Earth, align with Earth in your heart. And in that, you're going to be in direct alignment with the center of the cosmos as well, because that's, in a sense, where the umbilical cord is connected to this which we are actually in the process of making conscious. I just want to posit that so people can also appreciate when we talk about Palenque and we talk about Pakal Votan, also known as Kanich Janab Pakal, or Pakal the Great, Lord Pakal, then we're talking about a being, as it's mentioned, though that may be too concrete of a term to describe the continuing consciousness that is flowing through the earth right now in relationship to his samadhi.
Yeah. And let's remember that when he arrived, this is also part of the Mayan factor. For those who want to go to the text, he arrived in the year 603, and that happened to be a convergence of cycles that the sages at the time knew that whatever child that will come through that window would be a special child, really like a little Buddha. So when he arrived, they actually were waiting for him in a way, and he was enthroned still as in the year 615 when he was only 12. So what is really, really interesting is that, as we can see on the next slide, he was born on a day 8 Ajaw, and this last cycle of 360 days called Tun. That's why we in the article we will find, this is also an excerpt from the last article, is a prophetic synchronization in tune with the Tun, because the last Tun cycle of 360 days, which corresponds to the long count date 13.0.12.0.0, synchronized with 8 Ajaw. And that day is the same energy that Pakal was born. So basically, the start of this last cycle of 360 days on the traditional count or the indigenous count started on 8 Ajaw and will close on 4 Ajaw. And always because of the difference of 44 kin in between the Galactic Maya and the indigenous Maya, will be for 2024 to 2028, while that difference is 44 days, would be every iteration of kin 104 on the dream spell will be kin 60. So we find those two frequencies, the frequency of the samadhi of Pakal Botan and the frequency of his birth, together during this window. And the two of them add to kin 60 plus kin 104 is kin 164 with the yellow galactic cities. That's the midpoint of the axis of this 52-year cycle, the event called Galactic Synchronization that took place on July 26, 2013. The 0 point of the anchoring of the new galactic being. So that was the day when the 104,000 beam year started again. So we finish a cycle of 104,000 years really on that day, and we started a new one. And what we discovered after this in the last few days is that this synchronization is also showing a new layer, because next March 23, let's remember that. We can go to the next slide. Next March 23, 2026, it's going to coincide with two important markers in the life of Pakan. One is that it would be again a day 8 Ajaw, and it would be kin 104 on the dream spell, because of what we just mentioned. There is the 44 kin difference between both. That day we will complete 1,423 years and 1,999 Solkins since Pakal Botan arrival. And that is going to synchronize exactly with 99 Solkins of this Pope. That is really, we found that today, that as he arrives to his marker 99, Pakal Botan is arriving to his marker 1,999. So let's remember that would be only one Solkin away from completing 2,000 Solkins, which is 52,000 days. 2,000 times 260 is 52,000 or 520,000.
Yeah. Now, would it stand to reason then that because we're still in that 44 window for the next couple of Zolkin cycles, that when Pope Leo XIV reaches 100 Zolkins, Pakal reaches 2,000?
Yeah.
At the same.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
So that is very interesting.
And I think that would be, if I'm not wrong, that would be December 8th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right. And so that's a difference essentially between the two of them of 1,900 Zolkins.
Yeah.
And we know the number 19 and the frequency that holds. So that is really something.
Yeah, that was really something that I'm still processing, because the fact that March 23rd would be again 8 Ajaw, and that's the same day on the Gregorian calendar, the year 603 that Pakal arrived. What I think that is happening is that there must be the leap day factor factoring in, because usually it's only on multiples of 52 years that we will have that synchronization happening. So I don't know, over large periods of time we will do the math and
Yeah.
publish a complete note about this.
Yeah, I was thinking about it as well when you mentioned it the other day, because
Yeah.
with the leap day, the rules around that, based on years divisible by 400 or things like that, over this span of time, those may make an adjustment where it's offset, where it
Mhm.
doesn't seem to make sense according to the 52-year cycle.
Yeah, this
Though when
is
you factor it according to or against the Gregorian rules that were implemented as part of that whole scenario,
yeah,
then I think in the wash, once we actually do the calculation, it will make more sense. But it's a little bit of a distortion, but that also still speaks to what
yeah.
happens with
Mhm.
that Gregorian frequency. It,
Mhm.
it 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 creates a consciousness conundrum. It literally does. Whether
Yes.
it's at the small scale of your 7-day so-called week, or whether it's at a grand scale of a couple of millennia, it
Mhm.
creates a major dissonance
Yeah.
in the frequency.
Mhm.
And so we see then how that manifests in the world in the case of war or denial or all the weird stuff that we see constantly happening under the watchful eye of the church,
Yeah.
frankly. But
Yeah.
that
And,
said,
and let's remember that his Pakal Botan's tomb, the Temple of Inscriptions, was dedicated on a day Ajaw too, because of they wanted to leave that imprint that he arrived on a day Ajaw, and his temple was dedicated on the long count date 9.13.0.0.0. That I think is March 16 of the year 693, if I'm not wrong. But 1872 Solkins is also a fractal of the entire cycle of 13 Bactuns, comprised by 1,872,000 872,000 days.
1,872,000 days. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
So that is also interesting, because I don't know what is going to happen from here to this marker, but there is something going on for sure, because the numbers don't lie. And
No, no.
look at the long count marker, is going to be 13.0.13.8.0. It's also like a Fibonacci coded number, that long count. So basically, we are going to complete 13 back tunes, 0 catunes, 13 tunes, and 8 winals or cycles of 20 days since then. So that would be basically after the golden intersection, exactly 8 cycles of 20 days or 160 days.
Which also reflects the golden ratio.
Yes.
So, I mean, wow, this is really, really something.
Yeah, this is really something. And of course, that we have been emphasizing over the years that Jose Arguelles Balumbotam also happened to pass on that portal. So that we will.
Oh, are we still live? I don't know. I think we may have lost Ruben's signal here. But while we wait for him to come back around, let me actually bring this to everybody. Give me one moment while we'll wait for Ruben to rejoin the broadcast. As you know, energy in the air and all the digital telecommunications can present its challenges, particularly during a solar maximum wave like we're experiencing currently. But what I want to do is just bring this to the screen to encourage folks to check out the special report, Harmonic Entrance to the Golden Intersection of Timelines, a Golden Opportunity for Humanity. This is on medium.com/@the Harmonic Factor. I did put the link to this article in the chat, so anybody can go ahead and check that out. We certainly give thanks. Yeah, he dipped out, but he'll jump back in here in a moment. We'll keep the vibe going. But nevertheless, again, great thanks to everybody tuning in and kind of rolling with us, as this is all in real time, to say the least. So we give thanks for your presence and sticking in there with us as we continue to weave this energy and do the good work. I noticed some shout outs here. Okay, what do we have here? We got Synchrono unit, magnetic wind. Okay, Leo the 14th, Synchrono. All right, September 14th, Synchrono. That's also then José Ajpu Muñoz's Synchrono, white magnetic wind. Lots of good activity in the chat. Thank you, everybody, for showing up so much. Definitely a shout out to Kin 104. I wanted to mention that earlier, but I didn't want to spoil the the resonant frequency of this frequency match here. But certainly shout out to Kin 104, who tapped in and has been with us early on in the broadcast tonight. Auspicious frequency there. Certainly, again, that Kin 104 yellow cosmic seed is the unified cosmic time count for the golden intersection of timelines. Not only that, it also reflects the galactic signature of the newly elected Pope, Pope Leo XIV. Profound synchronicities we're discovering here. And let me remind everybody as well, our guest last episode, José Ajpu Muñoz, Kin 219, his traditional daykeeper is none other than 160 for Ajaw. So he is the holder of the frequency for the traditional Maya, literally, that is harmonizing all of this artificial time business. It's literally being harmonized by the traditional daykeeper 160. And we were so honored to have him on last episode 7 days ago. And again, bearing in mind, we didn't know anything about the Pope and who the selection would be or any of that stuff. All we knew was that on Kin 44, the conclave was beginning. And then, like everybody, on Kin 45, we learned of the selection, 6 p.m. Rome time, wherever you were in the world. It's like everybody tuned in and began to resonate and recognize and reflect on what this may imply. Now, of course, the first thing we did was to go figure out what Robert Prevost's birth date was, so we could decode this character and really get some clarity. But certainly came as a great surprise, both that he has the same birthday as José Ajpu Muñoz, September 14th, and that they're 10 years apart, or rather 11 years apart. Another way the 11 shows up is if this is the 443rd year of the Gregorian calendar itself, which reduces to 11, a master number. So many frequencies, so many expressions of this truth, just so profound. So I want to thank Ruben, who certainly did a phenomenal job in preparation for tonight in terms of being able to lay out a very comprehensive presentation of the materials. But we certainly want to continue to encourage you all to tune in with us, tap in wherever you can. We invite you to certainly visit us on our various channels, whether that's on IG at the Harmonic Factor, as well as at Golden Intersection. That is 2 of the locations we are on IG. We do have our Spanish language IG as well for the Golden Intersection. And also we want to encourage you to visit the website, theharmonicfactor.com /golden-intersection, where you can get the white paper, both in English and Spanish, that was recently presented a few weeks ago, to further elucidate or illuminate this subject of this once ever event and once only historic event. It will only ever happen once, in fact. That's why we're giving so much attention and energy and care for this, because it is that important. It's on the same level as something like the Harmonic convergence of 1987, or even the completion of the cycle, December 21st, 2012, the beginning of the new cycle, December 22nd, 2012, which, as last week Tata Jose shared with us, the nature of being a carrier of the sixth sun prophecy, and that prophecy began, or that work began, December 22nd, 2012, the first day into a new Baktun cycle, in fact. So many auspicious synchronicities, and all of this occurring really for our mutual collective benefit. So prayerfully, you all are resonating with as much resonance with this as we are, but we certainly give great thanks and invite you to continue to tune in with us each and every episode. And real quick, we'll just drop here where things are going. I did mean to share this earlier, but we are, as of today, 155 days to the golden intersection of timelines. So we can appreciate that here. 155 days to go. And it's almost, the whole thing has practically been on autopilot. Not to say it's not without its effort or work, but certainly there is a force much greater than all of us guiding this process and allowing us to see, allowing us to observe these profound harmonizations, these profound synchronizations that are happening in real time within a short span of 7 days. It's as if we're in an entirely new format, it seems. And that is, again, why we were so encouraged to revive the conversation related to the article written by Dr. José Arguelles in the year 2001 on May 4th. May the 4th be with you. So in 2001, what would have amounted to literally a week ago today, or 8 days ago today, 24 years ago, this article called Campaign for the New Time was published as part of a larger 113-page document. But the last portion of this document was so significant, we will make sure to publish that as sort of an archive or historic document on the Harmonic Factor website for folks that do want to read it. It's a very heady read, but it really lays out the entire thinking and resonance behind the need to change the calendar. And as I said so passionately earlier, with all the reverie and all the hope that a new pope brings about, we don't want to get seduced back into the same time loop. That's the biggest caution right now. So literally today being 11/11, we know it's a portal in the moon of liberation, amplifying liberation. 11 and 11 are 22. We know that's the guide code for none other than Bolan Ik, Loidine Arguelles, or rather Loidine Burris in her embodiment signature. So we recognize all of these things aligning really and truly. Okay, storms blinked out, power out here 2 minutes just before Ruben dropped. Yeah, that is kind of freaky. And I mean, energy is everything, and everything is energy. So have no doubt that the fact we're actually making this conscious together with those of you gathered in the live chat, we give great thanks for you. But just know through the observer effect, we're all collectively observing this. So it's going to manifest like interruptions in technology. That should be expected during a major solar maximum, which again only happens every 22 years. So we happen to be in that frequency band right now since October 15th, 2024, up to the year to follow, October 15th, 2025. We're literally, y'all, in the solar maximum window. Pay attention to your central star. Pay attention to the Schumann resonance. Pay attention to your physical body, actually, and stay hydrated. No matter what you do, stay hydrated. You got to stay hydrated. So I'm not sure what's coming up here. Lost connection with them backstage. All right. Well, in any case, we give thanks to Ruben again and Alejandra for her important work. Big up to our crew, the 260 Pod. And we invite everybody to stay tuned with us. Please visit our platforms, like, subscribe, and share this playlist or our episodes with anyone and everyone, those who you know and love, even those who you can't stand, because there's only one of us here, okay? So the reality is we're all getting a chance to level up, and we do it together, really and truly. That's what's happening. So we give great thanks to all of you who've stayed with us this long and who will continue to stay tuned. And I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. But we again give great thanks for your presence on the planet. And Lakesh Alakin, to all of our relatives out there in the world, staying tuned and, staying in the heart, really and truly. That's really where it matters most. Stay in your gratitude, stay in your heart, stay in your good thoughts, and just be a blessing out there, whatever that means to you. Show up and be a blessing, okay? So with that said, tune in with us again in the next 7 days for episode 33, which no doubt will promise to be a powerful frequency. But we give great thanks for you in Lakesh, and one love to one and all.
Tune in with the Galactic Spin podcast and expand your view. Galactic Spin podcast and expand your view.